Thanks for tuning in at Brackeys.
Hello everyone and welcome to video number 5 on creating a tower defense game in Unity. Today we're going to be continuing with our turret. More specifically, we're going to make it shoot some stuff. So that's going to be super fun. So you can see that I'm here in Unity, and what I want to do is I want to select my turret and open up the turret script. This is a pretty good place to add our shooting mechanics because we already have this target variable available to us. So let's begin by adding a variable here, and this is going to be our fire rate. And I'm just going to default this to 1, meaning we will fire 1 bullet each second. Then next we need a, that's not right, we need this to be a public float, there we go. Next up we need a private variable, a private float to be specific. And this is going to be our fire countdown. And it's basically going to start at 0 so we can fire right away. And then once we fired, it's going to be set equal to 1 divided by a fire rate. So if we can say shoot 1 time each second, that means that our fire countdown will be set to 1, and then it will count down every time we draw a frame until it reaches 0, and then we can shoot again, and so it will continue. And this just makes sure that we have our shooting on some kind of fixed update. So inside of our update method here, what we're going to do is we are simply going to say if our fire countdown is less than or equal to 0, meaning it's time to shoot now, well then we want to shoot, and we're going to make this method in a second, and then we're going to set our fire countdown equal to 1 divided by our fire rate. So you can see here very quickly that if our fire rate is 2, that means we want to fire 2 bullets each second. That means that it should count down from 0.5. Okay, so cool, now we have that set up. Now we just need to make sure that our fire countdown actually counts down. So we want to decrease this by a small amount each frame, and we do that by saying fire countdown minus equals time.delta time. So again, this will make sure that every second fire countdown will be reduced by 1. Good, we've done this before. It's very similar to the logic we used in the wave spawning. So now we can create our shoot variable, and we just say void shoot here, and we are going to have some different stuff in here. We're going to be instantiating a bullet, and we're going to be setting a target for that bullet. But for now, let's just do a debug.log statement called shoot, just to see if things are working. So let's jump into Unity here, see our variables pop up. There is the fire rate, and now we can hit play here. And we should see that when it locks onto target, it says shoot with an interval of 0.5 seconds. So that's perfect. Now what I want to do is just be a bit more organized in the way we have variables set up here, more specifically how they look in the inspector, because once you get to have more than 5 or 6 variables, it can be a bit confusing. So what we do here is take our fire rate and fire countdown and move them up to where our range is placed, and then let's separate that from our target. And what we can do is add a header, and this header is going to say attributes. So these are the things that that can vary from one turret to another. These are things that maybe can be upgraded or changed. And then we're going to make another header down here, which is just going to be Unity setup fields or something like that, just to let people know that this is things that Unity requires for us to do this. It's not something that should be changed by the user. And this should just organize things a bit better here. So we have the attributes and we have the Unity setup fields. In general, use header files a lot. It really makes for, very easily makes for a better interface when working with your own scripts. Great. So now we can go ahead and actually add this shoot functionality. But we have to have something to instantiate. So let's go ahead and make a bullet. So let's right click, go under 3D object and select sphere. And this is going to be, whoa, we don't want this under the turret. And this is going to be a very simple model. Just reset that, focus in on it and move it up a bit. And I'm going to make this a size of, let's say 0.5 or 6, 0.6, 0.6, 0.6, something like that. Just so it's clear when viewed from a distance, but so it doesn't like look silly when coming out of a barrel that is probably a lot smaller. But yeah, this is going to be fine. Actually, let's do, yeah, we'll keep it at this. Great. And let's rename this to bullet. And this is just going to be a standard bullet. We can have other stuff like rockets or something like that later, or missiles. And we can go ahead and remove the collider here. We're not going to be using that. And we can go and add a custom material. So let's go under our materials folder, right click, create, and then material. And this is going to be our bullet material. And we can drag that onto our bullet and adjust it. Primarily, we want the smoothness down a bit, more metallicness, and then we want it to be kind of dark, almost entirely black. Cool. So that looks a lot better. And now we can take our bullet and turn it into a prefab by simply dragging it in under our prefabs folder. And while we're at it, I think we should go ahead and make a scripts folder here as well. So I'm just going to make a new folder, call it scripts, take all of our scripts, move it into that folder. Okay, so here we are. So the next thing that we want to do, well, actually we can just go ahead and instantiate this now just to see if that part is working. So let's delete the prefab here. Let's go under our turret script, and that it has of course moved. So we now need to open it from the new location. There we go. And we need to set up a reference to that bullet. So let's make a public game object, and this is going to be our bullet prefab. And we also need a public transform, which is going to be the point at which we want to spawn our bullet. So this is going to be our fire point. And this is easier. You could also use some kind of vector 3 offset, but if we just use the position of the turret, it's going to spawn inside the turret and look super weird. So instead we just use an empty game object that we reference as our fire point, and that just stores a position and a rotation, and everything's awesome. So yeah, so that's great. And then we can go down here to our shoot, and we can instantiate our bullet prefab at firepoint.position. Oh, that's not right. Firepoint.position, and then our firepoint.rotation as well. Great. So now we have spawned this bullet in, and it will not move anywhere, and it will not do anything, but it should be in the scene. So if we go ahead and reference this, we need to reference the bullet prefab first, and then we are going to need to make a fire point. So let's focus in on our turret. Let's go under our path to rotate and create another empty. Reset the transform, call this one fire point. And let's shift back into the isometric view here, the orthographic view. Just make sure it's centered there. Shift to the side view here, and let's make it sure it's centered here as well. And I'm just going to move it out just a bit from the barrel so that it doesn't overlap with our turret model. And something like that looks pretty great. So let's hit apply to that. And let's also drag in the fire point into the slot there, and then hit apply again. So great. Save that, and we should be ready to go. So we should see that when this locks onto an enemy, it creates a bullet, and that's awesome. But currently it's just floating in the air, and that looks super weird. So let's go ahead and change that. So let's add a script to a bullet that will take care of moving the bullet to where it wants to be and take care of hitting the enemy and stuff like that. So it will both move the bullet and do some hit detection. So in order to do that, let's find our bullet prefab, hit add component, and call this one bullet. And let's just go ahead and move this under the scripts folder right away. And let's open it up, and let's just reload that. That's fine. Remove system.collections. And what do we want to do here? Well, first off, what this bullet needs is a target. It needs something to pursue. And what we want to do is pass on the target that is found under our turret to our bullet. So we want to transfer that target, that information of what to shoot at, to the bullet so it can chase it. And how we do this is we make a private variable in here, a private transform, and we call this one the target. And then we made some kind of public function that we can access if we have a reference to the bullet script that will set the target. So we are going to have a public void here, and I'm just going to call this seek or chase or whatever. And this is going to take in a transform, and an argument which is underscore target, just so we can differentiate between the two. And we're simply going to set target equal to underscore target. So the cool thing here is we can simply call this seek method, and that will set up everything we need to be set up on the bullet. This could also do other stuff, such as instantiate some kind of effect right when the bullet is spawned in, or set speed on the bullet, stuff like that, pass on a damage amount to the bullet, all that kind of stuff. Great, so we have this seek variable, and now what we want to do is we want to call this from our turret. So we want to go into our turret here, scroll down to our shoot, and first off we need a reference to our bullet that is currently instantiated, and we do that by making a temporary variable down here that we are going to call the bullet game object, and by setting that equal to the instantiated object. And we of course need to cast this into a actual game object. So that is called object casting, and it's just a necessity. It's just something you need to do. Excuse me, when instantiating objects and wanting to and you want to store them. So now we have a reference to a bullet. Then we can go ahead and grab the bullet script of that game object. So let's do that. Let's store the bullet script here, and let's just call this the bullet, and let's set this equal to bullet go.get component of type bullet. So it will go ahead and find the component on that object, and then we can just make sure that this is not null. That's always a good idea to do that. So if bullet is not equal to null, if that's actually a component on that object, well then we want to say bullet dot and then we want to use our seek method, and then we can pass in here the target that is currently here, the target from up here, what we're currently shooting at. So that's basically all we need to do there. Then inside of our bullet, what we want to make sure is that we have a target, because if we don't have a target, let's say we start shooting and the enemy reaches the end of the level, and therefore we lose HP and the enemy dies, then this bullet is going to lose its target, and it's not going to want to find a new one. In that case, I think the best thing to do is either just let the bullet drop to the ground, or simply just destroy it. And in our case, I think we're going to destroy it. So inside of our update method, we're going to say if target should be equal to null, and this might happen, then we want to destroy our game object, this game object, and then we want to return. And the reason why we need to return here is that, again, destroy sometimes takes a bit before it happens, or to process, and therefore we don't want it to continue down in our code while it's doing that. So now we are much more safe in our code. So we should see this working now, and we could go in and preview it quickly, but I think we are going to have to move on here. So let's just move on, and basically what we want to do now is we want to find the direction that our bullet needs to point in order to look directly at its target. So we've done some of this before. It's a vector3 direction, and it's going to be equal to our target.position, our end location, minus our current position, so our start location. And what we then want to do is we want to go ahead and find out how much we are going to move this particular frame. And we do that by first making a speed variable, and I am just going to set this to something like 70. And then down here we are going to make a float, and this is going to be the time, or this is going to be the distance this frame. The total amount of, or the actual distance that we are going to move this particular frame, and that's going to be equal to speed multiplied with time.delta time. And then what we can do is we can check if our direction dot magnitude, if the length of our direction vector is less than or equal to the distance that we're going to move this frame, well then we've hit something. So why do we do this? Well, the length of our direction vector, this is our direction vector and this is the length of it. That is basically the current distance to our target. So the distance from our bullet to a target is equal to the direction dot magnitude. And if that is less than the distance that we are going to move this frame, that means that we've basically already hit the object. That means that if we actually do the movement, we're going to overshoot. And we don't want that. We want our object to hit before we move past our target. So inside of this if statement, we're going to have logic for whenever we hit our target. So let's go ahead and make a function called hitTarget. And other than that, I don't think we need anything in there. I think we just need to call that. And then, yeah, of course, we could go ahead and just return here. And then down here, that means we haven't yet hit our target. And so we actually want to move. And we do that using transform.translate. And the amount we want to move here, our actual translation, is going to be our direction.normalized multiplied with our distance, this frame. Again, we normalize it to make sure that however close we are to the object doesn't have an effect on how fast we're moving. We want to move at a constant speed. And this is going to be our constant speed. And we want to move relative to the world space, not the local space. And that's important, or you're going to get these weird circular, almost orbital behaviors. Yeah, it's not something you desire, trust me. Cool, and I think that was pretty much it. Then the last thing that we need to do in here is add some kind of logic for whenever we hit something. But let's go ahead and do that in just a second. So let's just make the hit target down here, and let's debug.log we hit something, just to see if it's currently working. So let's go ahead and hit play here, and let's find out if this is working. So let's find our turret. All of this is set up. We find our bullet. All of that is set up. Let's do this. So let's hit play and wait for an enemy to move inside of our range here. And you can see that our bullet jumps to that location. You can see it keeps following, but the shooting itself looks really, really nice. And I spelled something wrong, but yeah, it's working and it's registering that we hit something. So what we can do now is we can go ahead and just destroy our bullet whenever we hit something. So let's just right here, just destroy our bullet, which is game object. There we go. And then we can instantiate some hit particles. So let's go ahead and just very quickly create some cool particles that will spawn. And in order to do this, let's right click, create a particle system, reset the transform on this. Again, reset the transform. Let's move this over here just so we can see kind of what it looks like in context. Yeah. And then let's set the duration to 1. Let's do 1. Let's keep looping on. Emission is going to be with the rate of 0. Let's do a burst instead here. So comes out in bursts like that. And it's going to be between 5 and 10 particles. The renderer is going to be kind of different. We're going to make a new material first of all. And this is going to be our bullet impact material. And just drag it under there and then drag it into the particle system here. There we go. And we're going to change this from billboard to mesh, and it's going to be a cube mesh. So that's already working, so that's fine. All of these settings should just be fine. We definitely want some shadows in there. They look nice. We can go ahead and take our bullet impact and make this a lot darker, make it more metallic, not as smooth. Something like that. Kind of the same style as our bullet itself, so it almost looks like our bullet shatters and then becomes this. But I do want to be able to control it independently, so this is fine. And we can go back to our particle system. We can go in here and set our start speed to a random between 2 constants, and that's going to be between 0 and 5. Something like that looks nice. Then we can take our shape, change it into a sphere, Cool. Then we can add a gravity modifier, which is going to be 1. Then we can go in here and change the size to maybe 0.2. And we can maybe randomize the size just a bit. So between 0.1 and 0.25. There we go. So we have some random size. That's maybe a bit too much. So 0.15. There we go. That looks really nice. Then we're going to add some bounciness to these. We are going to actually make them collide with our environment. And we do that by going down here, enabling collision, changing our collision to world. 3D, we want to dampen it by something like 0.8. And you can see currently they're going right through here. And the reason why is we need to go into our environment, select all of our ground planes, and add a box collider. There we go. We deleted those in an earlier episode, but I didn't think that we would need them for this, but we would. And we can maybe dampen them just a bit less, something like 0.6. That's a bit more cartoonish. I think that's pretty fun. We can change the lifetime here to 1. Actually, let's do a lifetime of 2. And they will sink into the ground here. That's not much we can do about that. I think it's fine. Let's change the collision quality to medium. And yeah, I think we're getting there. The shape, we can just make that a bit smaller, something like 0.2, because we want them to just explode from a single point. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And then we can maybe make them shrink when they are over with their lifetime. So let's go and add a size of a lifetime, add a key to this, and just add a small fade out in size at the very end. There we go. So we can go ahead and rename this to our bullet impact effect. And we can make it into a prefab, and we can delete it from our scene. Then we can go into Visual Studio, add a reference to that prefab up here, public, and this is going to be a game object, and this is going to be our impact effect. And down here we then want to instantiate our impact effect at our current position and using our current rotation as well. And that should be it for that. We could go ahead and clean this up in the hierarchy. Let's just do that. So game object, store a temporary reference, and this is going to be our effect instance, and we're going to set that equal to that and cast it into a game object, and then we can destroy that effect instance after, let's say, 2 seconds. This way it won't clutter up the hierarchy. And now let's try and hit play on this and see if it works. Whoops, think we need to reference the impact effect, of course, on our bullet. So drag that in there. So now let's hit play, and hopefully this will work. So let's see, and it's working beautifully. So I think that's a really nice effect. I really like what that does. You will notice it just glitches out, and that's because I forgot to turn off looping. So just very quickly loops and then it gets destroyed. That should fix it right there. And what we can also do is we can go ahead and just destroy our enemy for now. Later we will have just our destroyed target.gameObject. Later we will have some kind of way of damaging our enemies, so they will need some kind of stats or something, but for now we can just destroy them, so all the turrets will be super powerful. So you can see that looks super nice, and we'll definitely do more of this stuff later, but for now that was it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. So I'm gonna start mentioning Patreon supporters the following month after they donate, so that there won't be any difference from donating at the beginning of the month to the end of the month. This way everyone will get a full month of mentions, and yeah, everyone will be happy. So just wait for the next month and you will see your name here. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.